The community that once surrounded you is now seething with envy and bitterness because they can no longer profit from your success. They had meticulously designed an entire ecosystem around extracting value from your talents, positioning themselves as gatekeepers and taking cuts from opportunities meant solely for you. Now that you've severed those parasitic ties and established direct paths to your audience, their scheme has collapsed. The mastermind behind this exploitation operation is physically deteriorating from the stress of watching their cash flow disappear, a living testament to the karmic consequences of attempting to build wealth by stealing from someone divinely protected. The leeches are starving. They fed off you for years, financially, emotionally, spiritually, a quiet, relentless siphoning. They never thought the flow would stop. They counted on your kindness, your consistency, your inability to say no. You were their meal ticket, their wellspring, their energy source. But the supply has dried up. The moment you stepped away, the moment you cut the cords, the cracks in their foundation began to show. The bills they never worried about, the status they clung to, the power they borrowed from your name, it's all slipping through their fingers. They aren't just losing money, they're losing control. They relied on proximity, assuming that, as long as they stood close enough, they'd always benefit from your rise. They treated your success like a public fountain, always there, always available, free for the taking. You gave without question, without hesitation, because deep down, you believed they wanted the best for you. They never did. What they wanted was access to your influence, to your resources, to the privilege of saying they knew you before. It wasn't admiration, it was entitlement. Now, that entitlement is curdling into resentment. They don't know how to function without you. The same people who bragged about their connection to you now whisper about your selfishness. Their words are laced with bitterness, their voices sharp with betrayal, not because you wronged them, but because you stopped serving them, and the panic is setting in. The ones who used to call you every day now avoid your number, too ashamed to admit that without you, their world is shrinking. The opportunities that once seemed endless have dried up. The hands they used to shake, the rooms they used to enter, all of it was because of you. The invitations have stopped, the attention has faded, the respect they mistook for their own has disappeared because it was never theirs to begin with. They were borrowing from you. And now that you've closed the door, they are forced to confront the truth. They were never the source. They scramble to find new hosts. They latch onto whoever is rising next, hoping no one notices their desperation. But it's too late. The community sees them for what they are, the false supporters, the opportunists, the ones who only celebrate you when you're feeding them. You were their safety net, and without you, they're falling fast. They smiled in your presence, spoke highly of you in public, told everyone they believed in you before you even made it. They called you family, a friend, someone they were proud to know. But behind closed doors, they weren't just watching your rise, they were engineering how to control it. They positioned themselves at the gates. Anyone who wanted access to you had to go through them first. Your network filtered through their hands. They answered messages on your behalf, decided which opportunities you should accept, told people they'd see what they could do about getting in touch with you, when in reality they were taxing your success before it ever reached you. You became currency to them, a name to leverage, a resource to broker, a product to distribute. The money was part of it. The backdoor deals, the sponsorships, the under-the-table fees. They all lined their pockets while you were left out of the conversation. But it was bigger than that. It was about power. They wanted to shape the narrative, to own the story, to make sure your success could never exist without their fingerprints on it. They wanted to be the reason you flourished, the one standing beside you in every picture, the person history would remember as the key to your rise. And for a while, it worked. They told you it was for your protection, that they were just managing the chaos, that you needed them to navigate the world, and maybe, for a moment, you believed it. But then the pattern became clear. Conversations you never had, but your name was in them. Promises you never made, but you were bound to them. Relationships that were meant to be yours, but they intercepted them. They weren't protecting you. They were bottling your light and selling access to it. But here's the twist they never saw coming. You outgrew them. You saw through the manipulation. The invisible strings they thought you'd never notice. The deals made in your name without your knowledge. The influence they had over people's perception of you. And you cut them off. Not with an announcement. Not with a confrontation. With action. You stopped checking in. Stopped giving them first access. Stopped allowing them to act as the middleman. You opened doors without them. And suddenly, their position crumbled. They weren't the gatekeeper anymore. They were just another bystander, watching you move without them. You weren't supposed to question their role, weren't supposed to realize that every opportunity they handed you came with invisible strings, that every move they made wasn't about supporting you, it was about controlling you. But you saw it, and you made a decision. You refused, not with hesitation, not with guilt, with certainty. You stopped responding to their calls, stopped letting them approve what was never theirs to approve, stopped allowing them to move money, conversations and relationships like pieces on a chessboard. They felt it immediately. The shift, the power slipping from their hands, the realization that you had shut the door on their game and thrown away the key. This was something they never prepared for. Because up until that moment, they were convinced you would always feel indebted, that your sense of loyalty would keep you from walking away, that your fear of disappointing others would override your awareness of their manipulation. But you weren't afraid anymore. You chose yourself over their schemes. You chose your integrity over their expectations. You chose your power over their illusion of control. And when you did, the whole system they built around you collapsed. The whispered threats, the guilt trips, the subtle reminders that you owe them, none of it worked. Because once you saw the truth, once you recognized the trap for what it was, you couldn't unsee it, and they couldn't stop you. So they panicked. They tried to turn people against you, tried to rewrite the story, casting you as ungrateful, selfish, out of touch. Tried to convince the community that your refusal wasn't strength, but betrayal. But deep down, they knew this wasn't just a rejection, it was a declaration. You will never be controlled again. The moment you stopped, the moment you cut off their supply, they turned. The same mouths that once praised you suddenly spoke venom. The same hands that clapped for you now typed out insults. You didn't just leave. In their eyes you betrayed. Whispers crawled through the community like smoke from a burning house. You think you're better than us now. You forgot where you came from. You're selfish, ungrateful, arrogant. They said it with conviction. Not because they believed it, but because they needed others to. If they could make you look like the villain, they could justify their own bitterness. If they could make you look disloyal, they wouldn't have to admit they were parasites. If they could make you seem like you changed for the worse, they could ignore the fact that you simply outgrew them. They wanted your downfall, not because you did anything wrong, not because you hurt them, but because you refused to be used. That was unforgivable. So they tried to turn the tables. Fake concern laced in their words. I just don't understand why they're acting like this. Shady social media posts. Some people forget who helped them on the way up. Hushed conversations in rooms you were no longer invited to. They abandoned their roots. But the truth? You were never one of them to begin with. Not because you were better, not because you looked down on them, but because you were never meant to be a pawn in their game. And the moment they realized they could no longer control you, they showed their true faces. Let them talk. Your silence is louder than their noise. Did you know the Obsidian Inner Order is the #1 Ascension Nexus for chosen ones? Well, now you do. But here's something you might not know. Joining the Inner Order gets you access to weekly group calls with over 450 fellow chosen ones, and we record them so you can catch up anytime. Our private Discord? It's not just active, it's a treasure trove of the world's most fascinating conversations. We're talking deep dives into occult knowledge, spiritual techniques, targeted individuals, diet optimization, and everything you need to fine-tune your ascension. This is where chosen ones gather to exchange wisdom, elevate one another, and tap into the kind of insights you won't find on YouTube or anywhere else for that matter. And for the seekers, dive into Modern Manifestation Mechanics, our exclusive grimoire, with 3 chapters available to members. Learn how to turn your home into an abundance magnet, master basic spellcraft for physical manifestation, and channel magical forces to elevate your goals. Plus, you'll get access to interviews with real targeted individuals and video specials so bold, the YouTube archons don't even want you to see them. This is more than a membership, it's a movement. So what are you waiting for? Stop searching. Start ascending. The link is in the description. They didn't see this coming. They thought they could plot in the shadows, pull the strings, and watch you dance. That their schemes would go unnoticed, their manipulation undetected. They were wrong. It's eating them alive. Their body betrays them. The weight of their own deceit, the stress of their collapsing empire, it's all catching up. The headaches, the sleepless nights, the tension clenching in their chest. No matter how much they try to mask it, their body knows the truth. They failed. The payday they counted on, gone. The influence they had, shattered. The control they wielded, slipping through their fingers, and they can't take it. The bitterness is rotting them from the inside out. Every meal tastes like disappointment. Every breath carries regret. Their mind replays every miscalculation, every false move, every moment they thought they had you in their grasp, until they didn't. It's not just stress. It's the weight of knowing they lost you. They can't turn back time, can't undo the betrayal, can't convince you to unsee the truth. And that realization? It's destroying them. They lash out, blame others, curse your name in rooms where your presence lingers like a ghost. But deep down, they know. They did this to themselves. They spent so much time trying to control you that they lost control of themselves. Let them suffer. Not because you wished harm on them, but because this is what happens when you build a life off deception and greed. The sickness isn't random. The sleepless nights aren't coincidence. They poured poison into your cup, and now they're the ones choking on it. They treated your success like a community fund, not something you worked for, not something you sacrificed for, but something they were entitled to. You weren't supposed to say no. You weren't supposed to question it when hands reached out again and again and again. They disguised it as support, as tradition, as giving back. But you felt it, the expectation that every check you earned came with invisible deductions, that every opportunity you unlocked came with unspoken conditions. You were never just celebrated. You were calculated. Your growth was measured in what it could do for them. Your rise was only valuable if they could get a piece of it. And when you refused, everything changed. The congratulations faded, the support turned bitter, the smiles tightened at the corners. They called you selfish, said you were turning your back on them, accused you of forgetting your roots. But the truth was much simpler. They never cared about you. They cared about what you could give them. And the moment they realized you wouldn't be their lifeline, they showed you what their loyalty was really worth. Nothing. You don't owe them. Not your money, not your resources, not your guilt. If they were truly for you, they would have clapped without expecting a payout. Let them talk. Your success was never theirs to tax. They swore they were the victims, played the role perfectly, teary-eyed, betrayed, wronged. Told anyone who would listen that you were the one who changed, that you turned cold, turned your back, abandon the people who built you. But the internet never forgets. And neither do screenshots. The proof is everywhere. Private messages where they divided your success like a business deal. Emails filled with numbers, money they planned to make off your name. Social media messages dragging your reputation while using it to gain followers. They tried to bury it, tried to clean their tracks, delete messages, backpedal on statements they once said with their whole chest. But the damage is done, and the mask has slipped. People are seeing the contradictions, the same ones who defended them are rereading old conversations, noticing the patterns, catching the lies, their credibility crumbling. The more they fight it, the deeper they sink. The more they scramble to rewrite the narrative, the more receipts surface. You don't have to say a word. The evidence speaks for itself. Let them talk. Let them deny. Let them pretend they never did what's already documented in black and white. They thought they could manipulate reality, but reality is catching up. They thought they could use you forever, that no matter how far you went, no matter how much you grew, you would always be within their reach. They built their plans around you, staked their future on your success, but you walked away. They're drowning, financially, emotionally, spiritually. The same schemes they set for you are closing in on them. The events they planned under your name, failing, the fake alliances they built, cracking, the resources they stole, drying up. You were the foundation of their illusion of power. The credibility they flashed around wasn't theirs. It was borrowed from you, and without you, everything is collapsing. They can feel it happening. The calls that once came in, every day, silent. The people who once believed their lies, falling back. The money they expected to flow endlessly, nowhere to be found. They know exactly why. They can lie to others, but they can't lie to themselves. Every night, when the noise fades and they're left alone with their thoughts, the truth claws at them. You were the blessing in their life. You were the reason doors opened for them. You were the energy source they leached from. And now that you're gone, they can't fake their way into abundance. They can't manipulate their way into success. They can't steal the light that isn't theirs to hold. So they spiral. Paranoia takes over. They start questioning everyone around them, wondering who's still loyal and who's watching them fall. Regret poisons their mind. The memory of every opportunity they fumbled, every moment they took you for granted, it haunts them. Desperation consumes them. They try to latch onto new sources, new people, new energy, but it's never the same, because they lost the real thing. And that loss, they will feel it for the rest of their lives. You could have clapped back. You could have exposed every lie, aired every receipt, burned every bridge with a single sentence, but you didn't, because your next move wasn't about revenge, it was about power. Instead of reacting, you restructured. You took a step back, not out of fear, not out of guilt, but to observe. Who was truly for you? Who only stuck around for what they could take? Who needed to be cut off permanently? The answers came fast. And once you had them, you made the kind of moves that can't be undone. The way you give back, recalibrated. No more open doors for those who only came to drain. No more free access for people who see your success as their personal bank account. You built gates, not walls, ones that only real supporters can walk through. Your network? Tightened. No more loopholes for opportunists to slip through. The same ones who thought they had unlimited access now find themselves on the outside looking in. Your boundaries? Locked in place. They call you selfish, distant, cold. Let them, because while they scramble, while they try to figure out how to get back into your orbit, you are rising on your own terms. No more manipulation, no more guilt, no more unearned access. This time, you decide who gets a seat at the aid table. And those who once felt entitled to your energy, they don't even have the address anymore. You feel it, the weight is gone. The energy is lighter. The air around you no longer carries the stench of entitlement. With the parasites cut off, real connections thrive. The ones who remain, they're here for you, not what they can take. Conversations flow without hidden agendas. Support comes without expectation. And the best part? Others are waking up. They watched you set boundaries, watched you walk away, watched you win without them. And instead of resenting it, some are learning from it. No more taking, no more draining, no more leeching off what was never theirs. You didn't just change your life, you changed the dynamic. They thought they were outsmarting you, that by manipulating, controlling and profiting off your energy, they would secure their future, that you would rise and they would ride the wave. But in their greed, they doomed themselves. Had they supported you genuinely, they would have stood beside you. Had they chosen loyalty over leeching, they would have grown with you. Instead, they lost everything. The influence they tried to steal, gone. The access they once had, revoked. The respect they faked, exposed. Their downfall wasn't a punishment. It was a consequence. You didn't need to lift a finger. The same deception they used against you turned inward, devouring them from the inside out. The same greed that made them betray you has caged them in a life of lack. That's how the universe works. It's not karma, it's not revenge. It's a law. What you give, you receive. What you take without earning, you will lose. What you try to control will break free. They played the game, and they lost. Now let them watch, let them regret, let them sit in the ruins of their own choices while you build without them. They had their chance, and they threw it away.